What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and you ready to get geeked up? The moon is in Leo, and this is one where we're gonna show out. We're gonna bring it in. So I'm wearing this one. I love wearing this shirt during the moon in Leo, because we really are going to get into the talk about the more kind of like showcasey side of Leo, the dramatized side of Leo, that flamboyant energy. We're gonna get all into that. My Leo placements are excited. But before we jump into this thing, if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, sun, moon, rising, wherever. This one's for you. But regardless if you have Cancer or not, you got Cancer somewhere in your chart, and planets pass through it, so it's good to get eyes on that. And I do tarot card spreads based on that lovely luminary. Oh, actually, no, we're going to point over here. The good old moon. Let me tell you something while we talk about getting geeked up. I saw the moon the other day. I got to figure out how to work this telescope better. But I went to go outside last night. And there was the moon, of course, and it's waxing crescent, and right below it, Big Papa. It was a treat. And I'll talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it's going void. Of course, it's all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's jump into it. Because, yes, I mean, who doesn't love a good moon in Leo? Well, maybe if you got a lot of, like, other fixed placements, it might be a little tricky. So well, no, we're not bringing it down. But, well, only for, like, a moment. Because depending on when you're watching this, Saturn. Happy Saturn Day. Trying to bring down the mood. Saturn is associated with Saturn days, which, well, obviously, but that means it's associated with Saturday, which still kind of like makes sense. But when you think about Saturn days, I like to think of Saturn days and Saturn hours as just like a time to get down to business. All right, before we go out and we get our best dress on and go tear up the town, did we get our stuff done? did we get all the paperwork things done, all the responsibilities, any sort of like arduous tasks that require a lot of you and just like require like patience, any sort of things like that. I find that Saturn days can be really good for that. I notice if I've been kind of dilly dallying, then and if I see a Saturn hour coming, I'm just like, uh oh, Saturn's looking. And nobody likes to get, you don't want to get caught with your pants down when Saturn's around. That's never a good time. But if I do find that again, like when we put down like the seriousness of Saturn really does. I find Saturn's like our biggest cheerleader. Saturn wants us to give things form and to accomplish really great monumental things in life. And I mean, who doesn't want that? But it does require the work to put in there. It's not like Big Papa, how Jupiter just kind of makes it rain. You got to figure out how to make it rain with Saturn. So those are just some of the things I think to kind of generally think about with Saturn days. But also, I like to think about what's my relationship with Saturn, and not just like what I think about natally, which I have been thinking about quite a bit, but also I like to think about which I've also been thinking about quite a bit, how do you deal with when planets are aspecting your Saturn placement, but also too, how do you deal with Saturn transits? Because Saturn, I work with the traditional planets, kind of the classical planets, and Saturn is the slowest moving planet, spending about 2.5 years at a sign, and Saturn's getting ready to change signs here soon towards the end of the month there. So we're going to be getting to some fresh energies. So this would be a great time to get ahead of Saturn. That's the nice thing. It does go slow, so it does give you time to get things going. I'm pumped. Saturn in Aries, where it may not be in its best placement in Aries, but if you're like me and you got a bunch of fire placements, this is going to be some trine energy. That's Saturn. And if you put in that work, Saturn's going to make things move, and that's what I'm really excited for. This activating my ninth house, and some interesting things are kind of taking shape there. I'm feeling something. I'm excited about it. So definitely could be a great time to get some eyes on that. We're gonna get a taste of what that energy is gonna look like for the next two before it retrogrades back into Pisces one more time. I think around September. So just some things to just kind of get some eyes on there. But that's enough about Saturn. Let's get into the lunar shenanigans. because on the 3rd of May, the moon is going to enter into Leo at about 4:30 a.m. and that's going to be Pacific time. And before I talk about the first quarter phase, let's just talk about Leo energy for a bit. Because Leo is the fixed fire sign. They are active or yang in nature, and they're ruled by the sun. That warm, bright, life-giving sun. And I find that with Leo energy, there is this really just kind of, I mean, if you have any friends that have Leo placements, or you know how it can be. Leo can really light up a room. They really just have this natural vitality to them. They just say it really is just something about it. Something about those, especially like with the fixed signs. They all have something really kind of magnetic about them. But Leo is like that life of the party. Back before I was really kind of working on my spirituality, that was one of my monikers. I always thought of myself as just like a big old party animal. And then when I look at my chart, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Ruled by a 12th house sun. But I do think that it does bring about too. Leo is, when you think about Leo, just like Leo suns, for example, that sun energy, that source, the will, the soul. Leo energy has that way of taking that energy in and holding it. Leo's kind of like an oven, and I think you have to pay attention to the things that you're fueling the soul with, because that's what's going to shine the brightest. And I feel like when Leo energy is in its calling, really feeling in alignment with itself, I mean, there's nothing like it. It really is just a spectacular energy, and I think that the moon here and really invites us to take that side of ourselves and really what makes you shine. What is the thing that just lights your fire, that gets you excited every day, that gets you wanting to, that makes this journey more enjoyable. And just look at the things that have been that have been fueling your soul calling. And it's not, Leo's all about, like, I mean, not all about, but Leo energy can be one of just like of having fun. You want to enjoy yourself in this experience there. So I think that's a great way of working with this lunation here. And I think that this would be a great time too with this energy to ask yourself, what are the things again that kind of fuel you up there. Because let's get into talk about the first quarter. That's going to happen the next day. Oh, how lovely. On a Sunday. Oh, that's even better. It's going to be happening on the Sunday, the 4th of May. And the first quarter will be at 6:52 a.m. And we're going to go ahead and switch over. I got a nice little chart for you here. Now, the first quarter phase is when you got the sun kind of strolling around the lush pastures of Taurus. And then you have the moon in the playground of Leo, just having a ball. And actually let me do this in red, because this is a more of a harder aspect here. This is when the sun and the moon are squared one another, and this more specifically is a waxing square. So this is when the energies are starting to build in this square. And the first quarter phase, you can think of it as a time of taking action. Whatever it is that you started off for this lunar cycle here, this would be the time to really start implementing those things. So let's just use this chart as an example. Let's say if this was a chart of someone with just like a Gemini rising. Maybe there's been some themes, this would have activated your 12th house. So maybe there were some themes you were maybe going through, maybe a dark night, maybe working through those sort of like, maybe in like a bit of isolation, working through whatever 12th house things you may have been dealing with at that time. And now with it kind of activating your 3rd house here, maybe you're ready to get out there and start communicating again. You've processed this and you want to share what you've learned. This could be maybe in the form of writing something. This could be maybe where maybe you do like a little vlog here of just like, I came through the other side of this and you can do it too, but create some sort of like motivational video. Maybe you just get out there and maybe start hanging out with some friends, some family. Maybe you've just been wanting to socialize more. Maybe you've just been a bit of a hermit here. But whatever this is looking like, that can be just one example of how this can manifest for you. Another, for example, for me, because you want to look, and let me mention, this lunation is happening at 14 degrees and 21 minutes. So if you have any planets or points around this is going to be working with you more intentionally. Especially, or more, you may feel this one more personally, especially if you have anything around like the fixed signs. That's going to be, of course, Taurus and Leo, and then we include Scorpio and Aquarius in the mix. And I'll give you another example. This is actually after these two separate. They're both going to, the moon's going to apply to my Jupiter placement, which love that. And then the sun's actually going to be doing kind of some dual nature. My sun in my Jupiter placement, one sun's in Cancer, Jupiter in Leo, but they're both at 15 degrees and 52 minutes. So the sun's going to be activating both my sun and my Jupiter placement with this. So this is a really kind of active one for me. It's activating my career space, thinking about what I want to achieve, what I want to accomplish, and then that first house themes. It's like, how do I take those, how do I take the energies of the things that I've learned, and how do I help maybe other people move through 12th house themes? So that's another thing too, circling back to that Gemini. This doesn't have to be all your Gemini rising. That doesn't have to be like you've been going through a dark night. Maybe you've been helping people go through a dark night. You've been noticing that people have been around you, and it's just like, how can I raise the energies? What are some tools that I know that can maybe, help people move through this thing? So those would just be some general ways that I would suggest someone. And again, you just want to see where you have Taurus and Leo in your chart, because that's going to, that'll give you a better idea of how this lunation is activating for you. But I think that this is a time to be thinking about taking some bigger steps, some bigger things, because let me kind of clear this up really quick. One thing that's actually really kind of exciting, and I was talking about this in my other video, my other channel, Alchemist 8, so definitely check that video out if you're curious. But I was talking about here how Mercury and Jupiter are getting ready to form a sextile here soon, and that's creating some possibilities. Maybe someone can creating some like opportunities. Maybe someone could present you with like a client, or maybe you get into some sort of gig, or maybe you get an opportunity to move, or maybe go to whatever that's looking like. Maybe you get a chance to go to some kind of concert or creative endeavor, travel abroad, school, investment, just go through the houses. But this is, I think, a really great time. And Jupiter, too, is getting ready to form an aspect with the nodes here. This is going to be more of a square. Even don't let the blue fool you. It's going to be forming a square. But again, more movement is going to happen. More chances for expansion, or looking at where we could possibly expand more. And the reason that I'm really kind of emphasizing too this kind of getting yourself out there and just like really kind of shining your light, because let's talk about the Sabian symbol. Actually, let me grab my book here, because I want to get the Sabian symbol for the sun in this one too. But the phase that the degree that the moon is at is phase 135 of Leo. We're talking about the Sabian symbols now. But it's a pageant with its spectacular floats, moves along a street crowded with cheering people. I mean, you get that? You're just thinking about like parade energy. I'm thinking about like how you have like the Macy's parade, whether it be my first thought was Chicago, because that's where I remember seeing it. I was in that once, for marching band, or like in New York, or in sort of like big city. But it's a lot of energy. People are showcasing the skills that they've been practicing. And the keynote for this is the more or less sensational release of energies in a form of dramatizing the unconscious aspirations of man's primitive instinctual nature. And that's the thing. On a base level, we're here to create. We're here to express. We are these. When you think about just like when transits are happening, when you were born, there was a certain configuration that was happening in the sky, and you are the result of that. And so what does that mean? How does that portion of the sky really bring it? You know what I mean? And it's not just like, I think, a thing where you're just doing this to, it's not doing it just for the fame and the fortune. It's not what I think this Leo is getting at. This is like, Leo energy is inspiring. Fire energy is inspiring, because it's the will. It's the will, and so I think that this would be a great time, whether you want to showcase some sort of thing. Maybe you've been working on a book. Maybe you've been working on a screenplay. Maybe you have been working on a song. Maybe you've been building something. You got a new vehicle, car, device, gadget thing that you want to present to the world. Doing this stuff now, I think, would not only again get you on the map, but also I think inspire other people to do the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, they've been doing this thing. What am I waiting for? I can do that too. And it, of course, it's going to look different for everybody. We're not comparing, but I think it's to just again use people as a motivator. Like, how do I emulate that energy? How do I get into my true fire? Tap into my true will here. Because again, we're going to be under talk about Saturn. We're going to be in a lot of fire here in a minute. So just I think some things to think about. And even when I was looking at the degree of the sun, how they work really kind of harmoniously together. The degree the sun is at, which is at, of course, at 14 degrees of Taurus. The Sabian symbol for this one is head covered with a rakish silk hat, muffled against the cold. A man braves a storm. And the keynote for this is the courage needed to meet the crises precipitated by social ambition. So, you got this person's going out with looking stylish, got this hat, and you know what, we're gonna go do this thing. It doesn't matter how it's gonna go. I'm gonna go in my flamboyant shirt, and we're gonna go out and do well, in this instance, a hat. And we're gonna go out there and do this thing. And we're gonna do it well. We're gonna show up like everybody's gonna, it is almost like it reminds me of like singing in the bathroom, or singing in the shower, or dancing like no one's around, but now there's everyone around. And that's not to be something where it's like intimidating or anything, but and again, this is varying degrees. Whatever this big thing is for you, I think that sometimes there is this maybe kind of overemphasis on wanting to achieve fame and fortune and all this stuff, but that's not the point. Those are bonuses. The point is to reveal that inner side of yourself, that inner light. So just some things I think to kind of think about with this kind of lunation here. And again, that first quarter is about now we're in the action phase. We're not getting curious anymore. And if you don't have anything that you're started up, don't think that you're behind. Now there's no time better than the present to get these things. Because if we're waiting for like the perfect situation or the perfect, for the stars to align and stuff, we never get anything done. So let's just go ahead and get it done while the energies are supporting that, it'll really kind of move this stuff along, give you some more momentum that you need. So just some things I think to kind of contemplate on. But let's go ahead and get into your general energy today, because look at that. People are gathering to see you. You got hexagram 13, which is gathering. And the changing lines that you got for this one was line 1 and line 3. So if you want to check that out, there's a link down in the description box that I have for a site that has all of the hexagrams and the lines that they have there for them and the interpretations there. I'm using a different book. It's the I-Ching, the Oracle by Kirsten Huang. So but there are so many resources out there for you. I think they're all very, very valuable there. But let's go ahead and talk about your first line here, which talks about a gathering at the gate, no troubles. And this, to me, a couple of things kind of came up for this. This is one where if you want to get some people together, maybe to pitch an idea possibly, I think that this would be great for that, especially working with that as Mercury's starting to apply that sextile to Jupiter. This could be where you get the support that you want, and maybe even more, you may not get more support than maybe even you expected to. So that's just one thing, like there's no troubles with this. This could be also too, maybe if you need to present some sort of like news to people, and it may not be like the best of news. Maybe you got some tough maybe adjustments that are thing. This that gives me like, how do you get it across where it's like, hey, we may be going through this thing, but we're going through this thing together. We're going to move through this stuff, whatever that might look like for you. That's just another sort of energy that's coming through. Maybe if you are in some sort of like leadership position, something along those lines. But also too, again, this would be great for some showcasing energy. Getting something set up. Maybe you want to host some sort of like gallery where you're getting ready to display some art, or maybe you want to again showcase your music skills, or maybe you want to show your carpentry skills. You've been growing some lovely flowers and you want to start you want to set up a booth or whatever this thing might look like. I think that this would be a great time for getting yourself out there more, getting some more exposure, and how much exposure you're open to. And it doesn't have to be just in public. This can be online. This could be through a blog. Maybe you don't have to do like a video thing. Maybe you're just releasing this, and maybe it's under a pseudonym if you're not trying to get that kind of attention. Authors do that all the time. So you can do something even like that. I think that's one thing that this hexagram is really kind of supporting here. or this changing line is supporting here. Now let's talk about the third line, which this one says, soldiers in the grass, lying in ambush, ascend to those high hills. They shall not rise for 3 years. And this to me gives a very kind of like we're preparing for something. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to take 3 years, but I would say that especially with maybe Saturn getting ready to move into Aries, this could be thinking about maybe there's this is like, and maybe you have Aries in the 10th house, and maybe you're thinking about, okay, I need to really kind of give I want to do this thing with my career. I want to showcase these skills. How do I give that structure and form with Saturn? Maybe this is happening. Saturn's going to move into your 4th house. And this is like, okay, maybe I want to think about maybe moving to another, maybe moving to a new house possibly. Maybe this is going through your 7th. You're thinking about maybe going abroad possibly, whatever that means, or maybe forming some sort of like relationships, or starting to maybe think about getting married, whatever this is. But this is about, I think the soldiers lying in the grass, they're anticipating something, and it's going to require a level of patience. And if you're not working with Saturn in this, you can do this with the moon too. The moon has where you're sure we have these monthly cycles, but I've talked about this too. The moon has even like a bigger cycle here, and I have some dates down on the side here that maybe you want to maybe over this Taurus lunation. Actually, let me pull that up really. Oh no, let's see if I can find it first. Oh, there you are. So if you want to maybe do something with this Taurus lunation, we started it on the 27th of April. The actual first quarter that's going to happen in Taurus is going to be in January 25th of 2026. So this is like the moon has this longer 2.5 year cycle. So if you want to build something along those lines in this house, that would be even a great way of working with this, that maybe with this energy as well here. But something's cooking. And it may be something that is taking a while there. So I think it's to make sure that if you're going to invest this time, make sure that it's something that you're going to enjoy the process of this. And it's not to say you're not going to have your ups and downs in this thing, but you'd be surprised. When I started this channel, I didn't really have a big idea in mind. It was just something that just kind of like called to me. I was just like, I was getting to this a lot of, really kind of getting deeper into the spirituality. And I thought, why not? Let's just see where it goes, and it's taken on a whole life of its own, and it's been something that I've really been enjoying there, and I've seen it evolve in a way again that I wouldn't have expected there, to where you're getting like where I'm getting clients and things. So it's just like, man, you just really never know until you really start putting this stuff. I think I had started these channels I think around a certain lunation. I have to look back to see, but one was like I did it within a couple of months of each other, but just something to kind of look into there. But let's go ahead and move over to the tarot. We'll get some more details with this. But before we jump into this thing here, these readings that I do, they are not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. And then with these cards that I'm going to pull, I'm going to talk about different scenarios that, mention about finances, medical advice, legal things, romance, but this is by no means professional advice. Talk to your lawyers, your therapists, your doctors, your healers, all those professionals. I'm always a big proponent for that. But what I'm going to do here with the tarot, I'm going to pull 6 cards, and considering that you got changing lines for 1 and 3, I'm going to get clarifiers for those cards there too. But let's go ahead and get into your first card, which talks about any sort of like short-term money matters. But I also like to think too of like, how you're spending your resources. That could be like your time, like proper, stuff, things along those lines. But let's see what's going on with that. I love that. Saturn's out to play. That's a rare sentence. You got the world here. And this is thinking about that great work. What do you want to complete? What do you want to invest in? That's what I'm really getting a strong energy for that. I'm also getting to, though, a more disciplinary side of Saturn. That maybe how you've been spending your, maybe possibly money, but again, or maybe how you're spending your time, you're thinking about maybe like how certain things maybe need to end. And this might be too, like what new thing with the world. This is the last stop of the major arcana train before we start all over again on the full. So this is not just an ending. This is the start. As something ends, something at simultaneously begins here. So it's like, what does that next chapter look like for you? We're in this kind of constant state here. There's these the lemniscates that are on these things there, the infinity symbols, and it's just like we're in this always this constant state of flow. And then look at that, we even got the fixed signs here. We got Taurus and Leo at the bottom here. Aquarius and Scorpio, I mean, we're not doing anything with them right now. I mean, we got Pluto and Aquarius, but it's fine, we're not. But yeah, this, and you know what? I'm even just kind of thinking about the fixed signs too. The fixed signs have this stamina, that this perseverance that they do with whatever that they start here. So that's just something here too. I think that is thinking about the work that you want to do for the long term. What are you leaving for the world? Or even this is might be a time where it's just like, that's weird. I even got a message where it's like the world is ready to see you, but it's like it's time to put. In order for the world to, it's like in order for the world to invest into you, you have to invest into yourself. That's an interesting energy that I'm getting with the world card here. But let's go ahead and get a clarifier with this and see what's going on with that with this world. And, maybe this could be, in like a travel sense. Maybe you want to go see the world. And it doesn't have to be maybe going like overseas, but maybe just like it broaden your worldview up a little bit there. Maybe traveling to a city. Oh, wow. Maybe traveling to a city that you've never been to here before. I'd love that. So you got the Chariot here. And so, I think that there is thinking about like, again, what's next? And this may be too. And that's interesting. Even though this is like the money matters, it's just like maybe you're not quite sure where you want to put your time into next. What that might look like. There's a feeling, but it's just like how do you make it concrete? Because the Chariot is Cancer energy. And, when you think about the world, Saturn in Cancer, Saturn in Cancer is in its detriment. And because it's farthest away from its home of Capricorn, which is easy to give form in Capricorn because they're the earth sign. But it's just like, how do you give the emotions, and in Cancer's emotions, those fluctuating emotions, they're always on the move. How do you give that form? How do you nurture that into existence? But I'm getting a thing too about seeing something through to a finish line with the Chariot, because this is a very very strong start, very kind of strong spiritual start. When you get a lot of majors, this is starting off with a couple majors. This is some big deal. This is spirit talking to you here. So, I mean, all this is spirit talking to you here, but as they say, it's a little extra emphasis when you got the majors in the game here, and there's a gathering at the gate. This is like we're getting ready to get off to the races here, so this is a time to get ready. There's no troubles, full steam ahead. So, and it may just be like, what does ahead look like for you? That's a very interesting energy. I'm with it. Now let's go ahead and get into your second card here, which talks about any sort of like medical matters and things about that. Let's see how the body's doing. So you have got the Ten of Wands here. Actually, more Saturn energy. This is Saturn and Sag. And this to me, I'd be one kind of paying attention if you have been taking a lot on your plate as of late. If you've been feeling maybe a little overstressed, I just kind of keep an eye on that. But I am getting an energy here of maybe needing to like push yourself a little bit. Like, this reminds me, I'll give you a kind of a personal example. I have, I've been working out, like, I've known working out just like all my life. My mom is like really, really big into fitness. I mean, she was a personal trainer at one point, but I mean, she's always been very, very mindful about that. And there was a period of time here, just here recently, where I was thinking about like, I've I feel strong, kind of like lower body and things, but I hadn't really pushed my upper body. That's something that I've been recently doing over the past, maybe for like maybe 4 or 5 years, but I felt like I kind of had reached a plateau a little bit, and I was just like, you know what, I got to get out of this comfort zone. I got to just like push and got to get to this, kind of get through this discomfort here. But what's going to happen is that you're going to start seeing results. Because I mean, one thing that I love about the Ten of Wands is that this dude is jacked. This dude is lifting. He's been really working hard here. And that's something I think too. I think it's like maybe even appreciating the work that you've done, but also knowing too, with the Chariot being in reverse here with the World, you might be thinking like, okay, like I can get to, once I get to, maybe where I'm at like a certain weight and I'm at this certain muscle mass, that it's done and I don't got to do anything anymore. And that's not true. You always got to work on it. It's always going to be, this guy's always going to be lifting. He'll probably have to add 11 wands here in a minute. But that's what this is kind of giving me here, this energy of maybe needing to push oneself a little bit harder, not to your point of where know your comfort, know your limits, never push to the point of like like real hard pain, but a little discomfort I feel like can be a very welcome thing. So that might be even something that's just kind of coming up there. But yeah, just kind of be mindful of the energy levels there, and know that if you're thinking about maybe like how long is this like healing process, or how long is this like do I have to do on this thing, it might be something where indefinitely. So we might as well get knowing that what's going to be the goal with that. If we gotta keep exercising anyway, like let's maybe be more. Maybe we're going to exercise to run a marathon, or maybe do a triathlon, or maybe just to run around the block. So whatever that is looking like, I dig it. But let's go ahead and get into your third card here, which talks about any sort of like legal matters or like social affairs, things along those lines. So let's see what's going on with that one. Whoa, that's really interesting. So you got the three of swords here, and this is more Saturn. We're getting a really heavy dose of Saturn. This is Saturn in Libra, but this is Saturn in its exaltation, though. This is Saturn at its most celebrated in Libra. But this to me here, maybe there is, maybe something where a contract is possibly ending here. Possibly now we're thinking about what are we going to do from here. Maybe there was some sort of like breakup. Possibly maybe like we're thinking about a divorce. Possibly something that comes to mind, but. Or maybe even some sort of like where you had to do something where you had to divide property up, or things along those lines that were not maybe happy with the results of maybe like of a court case or something along those lines. But it just gives me this energy too where, you may need to, maybe something where maybe something that happened may have not been the greatest, but it doesn't feel like the end of the world. This is just one chapter of many. When the world, when we reach the world, it's like that Chariot is just like, okay, now where do I go from here? And it's probably going to be something that may require some work from you. Like maybe a little extra push to get yourself out of this rut, if that's something that you've been maybe feeling a little upset. Maybe you've been kind of in this hermit mode. Maybe you've had to break up from a group, possibly. Maybe like a group of friends of things that maybe a certain crowd that you used to roll with. It became too much. It was starting to where, or maybe it felt like you were carrying all the weight, but they weren't possibly. So that might even be something that's coming up there with this Three of Swords here. But let's get a clarifier on it. Let's see what's going on with that. Oh, that's so fascinating. So here's one of Saturn's signs that it rules. You got the Devil here in Capricorn. You got Cancer and Capricorn here. And, with the Devil, this to me, maybe something had to end. It could have been because things were maybe starting to again get out of hand. Maybe this is where we're getting out of some sort of like toxic situation, some sort of like troublesome environment, something along those lines. So that's one thing that the Devil's kind of bringing up there for me. But the devil too, it's not just all about just like negative things with the devil. The devil is the lord of the gates of matter. You know, speaking while we're talking about gathering at the gates here. And there's a real sort of like there's a real creative potential that happens there, you know, that the devil can possess there, where you're where you're putting in like hard work possibly here. And maybe this work that you're doing, let's say for example, if you are, maybe you're going to school for something possibly here, you're going to, and you maybe don't have enough time to hang out with people. This could be where, yeah, it might be a little bit of an isolating time, but you got work that you got to do. You got something bigger that you're manifesting, then you have to maybe allot time a bit differently. And even though that may have maybe ended some relationships there, that where those holes have been left, new energies will fill into those spaces there. I'm feeling, you know, with the devil there. But I'm even getting again too, because the Three of Swords can be, it gives me this kind of like contractual energy here. Maybe this is something where we need to get out there and, yeah, maybe do some sort of like networking possibly here. That's another thing that's kind of coming up with the devil. So just something to kind of ponder there. Fascinating. But let's go ahead and get into your next card here, which talks about any sort of like marriage or romantic situations, romantic matters, things like that. All right. So you got the Seven of Wands in reverse here. And you know, this to me is like, if we're talking about like any sort of romantic things, one, the Seven of Wands is like going on the offense. You know, and this to me, maybe you've been in more of like sort of like a passive maybe sort of state. Maybe you've been kind of, let's say if we've been wanting love, but we haven't been putting ourselves out there, you may need to be a bit more aggressive about it. Maybe we need to, instead of waiting for people to hit you up on the apps, reach out to the people that you want to. The worst thing that they can say is that they're not interested, or that going into, you know, maybe going out there to different social events and things, and yeah, just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there in some sort of way here. But this is also too, if you're in a relationship, you know, this is giving me, if you've been in this place where you've just constantly felt like, you know, maybe someone's been like kind of coming at you possibly here, you've always had to, you've been the one to kind of capitulate. This could be where it's just like, enough is enough. You know, that's, I think the Seven of Wands is like, you know, protecting your energy. This guy is like, you know, is ready to, he's ready to go. And, you know, it's defending what's yours here. But this is, again, it feels like maybe you've been taking more of a passive stance. And if that's not something that has been working, or it's been, you know, it's where you've constantly been just kind of sacrificing for a thing, even going back to this devil with the Three of Swords here. And it's like maybe even with that Chariot to the World, we're not sure where we're seeing if we're not seeing an end to a situation here. Again, you may need to kind of like take the reins on this. So yeah, that's just something I think to consider there. But I'm even getting an energy too. You know, I think sometimes I was actually just talking with someone about this, where I think as a society sometimes like a lot of emphasis gets put on like the resource house, like the second house, or like the relationship house, or the careers, and like we ignore every other part of the aspects of life here. And maybe if you've been feeling like a pressure to like people like, oh, when are you gonna settle down, when are you gonna do this, when are you gonna do that, that's not everyone's story. You know, not everyone's meant to be in this sort of like traditional like marriage, you know, have 2.5 kids, dog, whatever that's looking like, or just being in a relationship, period. You know, sometimes it's just like, I just want to kick it solo. I enjoy my company, I enjoy my friends, I enjoy my family, then that's all I need. You know, and all everything's gravy. You know, I got a pretty loaded first house. If it weren't for Saturn, I wouldn't be thinking about relationships either. But yeah, that's another thing that's just kind of coming up here with that seven of wands energy. That's fascinating. Let's get to your next card, which talks about any sort of like immediately pressing affairs. So let's see what's happening, what kind of urgent matters are maybe coming up for you right now. Look at that. You got the King of Pentacles here. And, this to me, one is maybe we're looking for some sort of stability, possibly here. This could be where I also think too, the King of Pentacles, look at him all lavish. He's living that good life. But I think that it's because that he's had the courage to put in this work for the thing that he wants to get here. And maybe going to kind of circling back to that world, to the chariot, to the world, is like we see the vision that maybe you want to do, but maybe there's some sort of fear here with that chariot about going to get it. And it's like, it's not necessarily that you don't want the dream, but it's just like when you get it, how do you hold on to it? Because it's just like you don't want to lose this thing afterwards. Like now there's that excitement to it. And so that's an interesting energy there. I think that there's a need not just like for this sort of like this stability that's happened, but even more like a kind of inner stability that's happening as well. There's this but I also am thinking too, I think that sometimes we let the idea of stability maybe get in the way of taking maybe a more riskier type of move. And that's not to say that a risky move isn't going to get stable, you know what I mean? But I think like if you always just play it safe, then that's all you get back in this life what you put out. And so that's what I really feel this kind of King of Pentacles is giving, that if you want this thing, you got to match that energy. You got to put those things out there. Or, like if you're sitting on your, let's say if you're sitting on your couch and wondering why love hasn't come, but you're not doing anything about it, then, then there it is. So that's just something that's kind of coming through. Let's see, what else is coming through here with this King of Pentacles? And that's interesting. I'm getting this thing too here of like maybe reflecting on what you truly want. It's like maybe you don't want to do something again, like I was talking about with Leo. It's like it's not doing it for just like the fame, the fortune. It's just like doing it maybe just because you love it. And it may not sound stable, but it's just like I think joy and happiness, that can bring stability too. You know what I mean? It can bring that in all aspects of life because, when you're feeling fulfilled, that bleeds over into everything that you're doing. It shows up, it affects how you show up everywhere. So, okay. That's dope. Let's get to your last card here, which talks about the destiny or the karma of the situation. Let's see what the all right. let's see what that's about. So you got the Temperance card here, and here's Sag, and I instantly got brought back to the Ten of Wands here, because like I said, this is Saturn and Sagittarius that's going on here, and I think that with this energy, whatever this is that you're getting ready to tackle, again, it's like trying to find that inner balance that's happening there. This figure has 1 foot on the earth and 1 foot in the waters. And I'm getting this thing here about if you can find that inner flow, really getting in just finding your vibe. Look at that sun that's in it, that is on that angel's third eye there, and that fire symbol. Let's see if I can figure out where my fingers at. That fire symbol that's on its heart, because that's Leo. Leo is very heart focused, and look at that. You even got the red heart here with this three in the Three of Swords, and the Three of Swords is really one of the only swords cards that has this like kind of visible emotion, kind of strong energy that's kind of going on in there. So I think that it's like once you find that inner calling, then the outer world responds in kind with that. The sun, to me, the sun is getting ready to rise. And I don't know the last time you looked at a sunrise, but that might be something to do too, to look here for inspiration there in the road towards that sunlight. Something that really this energy is kind of bringing up for me here. That's really cool. See, something to meditate on there. All right, but let's go ahead and get some advice from Saturn, since Saturn really had a lot to say in this one. All right, so you got the Two of Cups in reverse here, and let's go ahead and switch over. Because, what I'm really kind of feeling with this Two of Cups, one, it feels like, I like to think of the Two of Cups as, yeah, it can be like a romance card. It can be like a really lovely card of romance thing. And maybe there's something where a certain relationship, romantic or otherwise, something's not working out. And it's not that it can't, I don't think it can't be harmonized, but I do think that it may be something that a discussion is needing to be had. Maybe intentions have changed. Someone is feeling a bit more like, like there's, maybe you've been kind of sitting on the sidelines for a while, but now, you're tired of being in this, like, playing someone else's support character. And now you're wanting to, like, get back to your story, get back to the main arc of you. And of course that might create a little bit of rift sometime, especially maybe if you've been this sort of like supportive, begin playing this sort of like supportive role for a while there. So that's something that's coming through there. But I also think too, this can be a connection between you and spirit, higher self, source, God, whatever that's looking like for you. And that maybe there's a need to get back in touch with, again, with that inner light there. Think about the things that you want, going back to this Moon and Leo energy there. When was the last time that you communed with spirit? Had to sit down, maybe had some tea, maybe offer, made some sort of offering with source, and just kind of, just thinking about some kind of bigger things, some sort of like intentions that spirit has for you. Are you doing the things that you love? Do you feel in harmony with your higher calling? And I love that too, that there's this kind of lion figure with these wings here. Let that Leo energy give you flight. Take you off into higher heights. Yeah, when we talk about high hills, let's go to the high hills. Absolutely. Where that sunrise is. I'm here for it. All right, but I think that's all I got for you there. I like that. That's some really groovy energy. But if you like that and anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody who would get some nuggets of wisdom from this. And then subscribe there, you world. Hit that bell button to get notified on all these videos each day. And then let me get your surprise card or cards here. But if you want to tap into your inner light, you want to get to know maybe your chart a little bit more, maybe you want to see what aspects are getting ready to come, where you want to see where the transiting planets are at, down in the description box there is a way so you can see the list of the services that I provide. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the email that's down there, and we can discuss all the things of how to book a reading with me, all that good stuff, and the things that it includes. But also, if you want to just like I do on my other channel, Alchemist State, I do weekly videos that come out every Mercury day. That's on a Wednesday. And I talk about where the planets are transiting. It's been kind of light these last couple videos, but we're getting ready to get into get some more movement here coming up here soon. So if you want to see what's coming up with that, I do again those weekly videos. There's Celestial News Weekly, and then I've been kind of busier here with some behind the scene things here. But I do these videos too where I talk about different planets and different signs in different houses. So if that's something that resonates with you, kind of like my thoughts on them. So if that's something that you want to check out, that's definitely available there for you. Okay. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise card here. Oh, and how appropriate. Very leonine. So you have the Divine Will card here. And I think that's something that we can all benefit asking ourselves. Do we feel that the things that we're doing are of divine will? Does this really feel Does it feel in alignment? The things that you're doing, especially, do you love the things that you're doing right now? And that doesn't mean that if you don't quit it altogether. It's just like, is there a way for you to bring more love into this thing, or is there something deeper than that? And then that might be something to explore. Like, maybe it's not that you don't like your job. It's just like, maybe I need to bring more of myself into my job. I'm just throwing jobs out for example. Or maybe it's not that the relationship is just like, you might just be going through like a little bit of a rough patch right now. Maybe there's just a need for better communication that's going on there. Maybe creating more space for that, possibly. That could be one thing that's just kind of coming through there. But also got this card is number 6, and that's the Lover's energy. And I'm just thinking about the choices that we make. Like, again, do they feel in divine alignment? And it's like, we don't always do it perfect. There are times where, you got free will always. That's one thing that Spirit never takes away from you. You can always make a choice. I think Spirit just is just like, you would like this thing, but I mean, I'm always here for the ride, whatever you're trying to do, as long as we get back on track eventually. So, and I even think too, just kind of going back to maybe that 3 of Swords, it's just like maybe that's something that happened was maybe like a divine intervention, possibly. You don't have the Tower energy, but yeah, it's just something that is giving me here too. That something was an act of divine will, possibly. So again, apply that to your situation as that makes sense for you there. But I think that's all I got for you there. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes. Well, I can't write this over there right now. Keep eyes on that moon, and I will catch you on the. No, I'm gonna catch you on the next one. Oh, how lovely, Moon Day.